Has been started.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Adityanjee, and I am the president of the Council for Strategic Affairs. Good evening to our distinguished speaker and people who have joined from India, and good morning to everyone in the United States. Those of you who registered using our flyer probably saw this flyer. Today is Saturday, May 27, 10 a.m. in the morning at Eastern Daytime. We have a distinguished lecture today, and the topic for distinguished lecture is Chinese base on the Coco Islands, maritime security concerns. And our distinguished speaker is none other than retired Admiral Dr. Sanatan Kulshrestha of Indian Navy. A little bit about Council for Strategic Affairs. Council for Strategic Affairs imparts education in the field of international relations. CSA fosters discussion, dialogue, and debate on geopolitical issues. CSA encourages strategic studies in general to raise the level of awareness. CSA condemns terrorism in all forms worldwide, and CSA aims to contribute towards world peace and prosperity. Those of you who would like to have more detailed information on the Council for Strategic Affairs, please visit our website www.councilforstrategicaffairs.org. A little bit of our activities. We have a monthly roundtable discussion on second Saturday of each month at 10 a.m. We have a monthly guest lecture by a domain expert on fourth Saturday of each month at 10 a.m. Eastern Daytime in United States, and that is what we are having today. CSA also organizes symposia, meetings, and conferences. We promote publication of articles on geopolitics and related subjects. And finally, we have a summer internship program, college students. All of you will be seeing our distinguished guest, but this is Admiral Sanatan Kulshrestha in his civilian clothes, and this is Admiral Sanatan Kulshrestha when he was in his uniform. A little bit of introduction. Admiral Kulshrestha is alumnus of Jodhpur University with gold medal in solid state physics in his post-graduation. He joined Indian Navy in 1975 and was awarded silver medal at the Naval Academy, the Telescope, and the Sword of Honor for being adjudged the best naval officer during the initial training. He did his specialization in quality assurance of naval armament and owned various key appointments at Naval Command Headquarters, DRDO, Ordnance Factories, and finally he rose to become the Director General of Naval Armament Inspection at the Integrated Headquarters of Ministry of Defense. During his career spanning over 3 decades in the Armament Quality Organization in the Indian Navy, he has gained and attained thorough knowledge of quality assurance of sophisticated naval armament, quality management systems, project management, negotiation on technical as well as financial subjects. So he also has a doctorate from School of International Studies at the famous Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. He is an empaneled PhD guide at the Amity University in Noida in Uttar Pradesh. He has been engaged in the study of strategic aspects of acquisition of emerging technologies in India by both public and private sectors, with specific reference to national security. He contributes regularly to defense journals on maritime issues and defense technology. He is a keynote and plenary speaker at national and international conferences. He has been on the CSA platform several times before also, and I'm very proud to say that he serves on the advisory board of the Council for Strategic Affairs. He also has a keen interest in fine arts and has been a script writer for several musical productions. I thought I'll share that passion of his. A little bit about the lecture. Coco Islands are a small group of islands in Northeastern Bay of Bengal near Andaman and Nicobar Islands. To the south of these islands lie the Landfall Island belonging to India. These islands once belonged to India, but at some point in time, the ownership and possession were transferred to Myanmar. For more than 2 decades, Communist China has been operating a listening post on the Coco Islands, although this has been hotly contested by some. Since India's decision to transform Andaman and Nicobar into Tri-Service Theatre Command, there is a chatter about Communist China with connivance and concurrence of Myanmar military government developing the Coco Island facility into a Chinese naval base. There are serious maritime security implications for India, and Admiral Kulshrestha will discuss various aspects of this emerging maritime threat. So just to orient you, this is a map and geographical location of Coco Islands. You can see in this particular slide, I'm not going to discuss more in detail because I would leave that for Admiral Sanatan Kulshrestha. A few of the housekeeping rules. Please mute yourself to avoid noise interference. Kindly change your cell phone setting to vibration modes. Please don't try to interrupt our distinguished speaker. Only those members of the audience who identify themselves openly will be allowed to pose questions. No anonymous questioners, please. All the questions are moderated and have to be sent through the chat room. Please don't send lengthy comments in the form of a monologue. Be precise in your question. We are recording this event like all our events, and generally it is available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website within 24 hours. So without further ado, I am going to invite Admiral Sanatan Kulshrestha. So sir, you are welcome on our platform. Kindly start and I'll start sharing your PowerPoint as soon as you wish me to do. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Adityanjee and CSA, for providing once again this opportunity today to talk on the topic of Chinese base on Coco Islands, maritime security concerns. I must thank you that every time I am overwhelmed by the introduction that you give to me, probably I don't deserve all that what you say about me. May I request you to put on the title slide number 1, please? And may I request the audience to look at the slide for a minute and see the implications of that slide. Today, I will start my talk with a group of islands having surprisingly similar names to the Coco Islands of Myanmar. I am talking about the Keeling Islands of Australia, also known as the Coco Islands. As the talk proceeds northwards from the Indian Ocean into the Bay of Bengal, I am confident that strategic security concerns in the maritime domain will become more evident. May I request to put on the slide number 2, Coco Islands of Australia. The Coco or Keeling Islands are an Australian external territory in the Indian Ocean, approximately midway between Australia and Sri Lanka and relatively close to the Indonesian island of Sumatra. Historically, the islands have been known as the Coco Islands or the Keeling Islands. The islands are located about 2,700 kilometers northwest of Perth, Western Australia. The largest island in the territory is West Island, located in South Keeling Atoll. The island's economy is based on tourism, fishing, and coconut production. May I request you to put on slide number 3, the strategic location of Coco Islands. India and Australia have a growing strategic relationship, and the Coco Islands are vital. The islands are in the Indian Ocean, about halfway between India and Australia, say about 2,600 kilometers from Andaman, and they offer both the countries significant strategic advantages. Several shipping lanes pass near the Coco Islands. The most important of these is the Malacca Strait, one of the world's busiest shipping lanes. The Malacca Strait connects the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, and it is used by ships carrying goods between Asia and Europe. Other shipping lanes near Coco Islands include the Sunda Strait, the Lombok Strait, and the Java Sea. These straits connect the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, and they are used by ships carrying goods between Asia and Australia. For India, the Coco Islands provide a forward operating base in the Indian Ocean. The islands are well placed to monitor shipping traffic in the Strait of Malacca, and they can also be used to project Indian power into the South China Sea. For Australia, the Coco Islands provide a strategic link to the Indian Ocean. The islands have an airfield that can be used by military aircraft. They have a deep water port that can be used by naval vessels. In 2018, India and Australia signed an agreement to upgrade the island's airstrip and build a new naval base. Further, they have a deal to use each other's islands for military purposes mutually. This agreement was signed in 2020 and allow both countries to use the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and the Coco Islands for meeting naval logistics requirements. However, this agreement needs to be upgraded to a coordinated maritime domain awareness program under which, for example, maritime reconnaissance aircraft can fly from each other's base and share the intelligence. Kindly put on slide number 4, the challenges of Bay of Bengal. The Bay of Bengal is a crucial transit zone connecting Indian and Pacific Oceans, playing a vital role in energy trade routes to East Asia. However, the region faces numerous challenges, including communal and religious conflicts with cross-border implications, political instability, separatist insurgencies, and maritime security issues such as piracy, gun running, and human trafficking. Additionally, the Bay of Bengal is affected by non-traditional security concerns, including human security, natural disaster relief, climate change, terrorism, refugees, drugs, piracy, and illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. These issues have a profound impact on the entire region. In 2016, a multinational team of scientists made an alarming discovery. A significant dead zone had emerged in the Bay of Bengal. This dead zone spans approximately 60,000 square kilometers and is expanding with time. This dead zone severely risks this region's fishery and human security. The livelihoods of millions of people who depend on fishing could be jeopardized, leading to a massive influx of migration across the bay. The implications of this dead zone extend beyond ecological concerns, affecting the socio-economic fabric of the region. Losing livelihoods in the fishing industry can result in widespread economic and social disruption, potentially leading to increased poverty and vulnerability among affected communities. Moreover, the large-scale migration triggered by such circumstances can strain resources and exacerbate socio-political tensions in the Bay of Bengal region. Addressing these challenges requires a comprehensive approach that encompasses traditional security measures and focuses on sustainable development, environmental conservation, and regional cooperation. Collaborative efforts are needed to mitigate the causes of the dead zone, combat illegal activities, promote responsible fishing practices, enhance disaster response capabilities, and address the underlying socio-economic factors contributing to the region's vulnerabilities. By recognizing the interconnected nature of issues plaguing the Bay of Bengal and fostering cooperation among regional stakeholders, it is possible to alleviate the risks faced by millions of people and ensure a more secure and sustainable future for the entire region. Coming to the strategic interests of various countries in the Bay of Bengal, we see that there is a thread of commonality among them. Firstly, regarding security concerns vis-à-vis shipping, terrorism, piracy, and natural disasters. Secondly, concerning the economic interests of natural resources, oil, fishing, and minerals, tourism. And thirdly, about protection of the environment, a bandwagon which almost all countries of significance have boarded. Kindly put on slide number 5, strategic infrastructure in Bay of Bengal. Satish Dhawan Space Center is a rocket launch center operated by Indian Space Research Organization. It is in Sriharikota, Andhra Pradesh, India. It is the primary launch site for ISRO's launch vehicles, including the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle and the Geosynchronous Satellite Launch Vehicle and Chandrayaan-2, the spacecraft. The center has two launch pads, the first launch pad and the second launch pad. The first launch pad is used for launching small satellites, while the second launch pad is used for launching larger satellites and spacecraft. The center also has several facilities, including a solid propellant processing plant, a liquid propellant processing plant, a vehicle assembly building, a launch control center, a telemetry tracking and command network. Satish Dhawan Space Center is a significant contributor to India's space program. It has played a crucial role in launching many successful satellites and spacecraft, including Chandrayaan-2 spacecraft, which landed on the moon in 2019. Situated in the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu, Kulsekrapattinam is the location of the second spaceport that India is building for the country's space program. Nearly 80% of the land has been acquired to construct India's second spaceport. When launching from here, the smaller rockets such as SSLV and those built by Indian startups can save fuel and fly a straight approach towards the South Pole. While Sriharikota is ideal for launching heavier rockets, a significant challenge arises when launching small rockets such as ISRO's SSLV, which is meant to launch around 500 kg weight satellites. Sriharikota presents a challenge when rockets are launched into polar orbit. While a rocket travels to the South Pole from Sriharikota, the rocket would have to overfly the island nation of Sri Lanka. Given the immense risk of rocket overflying a country, India's rockets are programmed to maneuver to avoid the Lankan landmass. So instead of flying in a straight line, the rocket follows a curved path and takes a turn. The rocket would have to burn a reasonable amount of fuel for this maneuver. In view of this, the second spaceport is being made. Kindly put on slide number 6, Abdul Kalam Island. Wheeler Island, now known as Abdul Kalam Island, is a small island located in the Bay of Bengal off the coast of Odisha. It is the home of the Integrated Test Range, ITR, India's premier missile testing facility. The ITR was established in 1989 and is used to test a wide range of missiles, including ballistic, cruise, and anti-ship missiles. The ITR is strategically vital to India, allowing the country to test its missiles in a safe and controlled environment. The range has been used to test several missiles, including the Agni series of ballistic missiles, the Prithvi series of surface-to-surface missiles, and the Akash series of surface-to-air missiles. It is also used to test India's missile defense system, missile defense interceptors, including Prithvi air defense and advanced air defense missiles. It is a vital asset for India's defense forces. ITR gives India a significant advantage over its adversaries. It goes without saying that all the launches of space rockets and DRDO or in-service missiles in the Bay of Bengal are closely monitored for their performance by sophisticated instrumentation at various places in the sea as well as on the coast. The Eastern Naval Command is based at Visakhapatnam and the Eastern Naval Fleet operates from there. In addition, there are other bases of importance. The dockyard for building nuclear submarines, INS Veer Bahu, a submarine base, INS Varsha, a submarine base under construction, INS Kattaboman, a submarine VLF, very low frequency facility, INS Paradeep, a forward operating base under construction, and naval air stations INS Parundu and INS Rajali. Coming to Andaman and Nicobar, kindly put on slide number 7, Great Nicobar Island. The Great Nicobar Island is strategically important to India for several reasons. The Great Nicobar Island is the largest of Andaman and Nicobar Islands with over 1,000 kilometers of land. The large landmass makes it an asset for India in terms of territory and resources. The Great Nicobar Island has a tropical climate which makes it ideal for agriculture and tourism. Its location in the Bay of Bengal, close to Malacca Strait, gives India a strategic advantage in monitoring and controlling shipping traffic in the region. In addition to these strategic advantages, the Great Nicobar Island is also home to a unique and diverse ecosystem. The island is home to many endangered species, including the Nicobar elephant, the Nicobar pigeon, and the Nicobar Scopes owl. The Great Nicobar Islands has, is also home to several indigenous tribes with a rich culture and history. The Government of India has announced a rupees 72,000 crore project which will be implemented over 30 years, bringing more than 3 lakh people to the island during that time. The centerpiece of the project is the holistic development of Great Nicobar Island and is a rupees 35,000 crore transshipment port at Galathea Bay along the island's southeastern coast. Other components are an international airport, a power plant, and a greenfield township. The Indian government has recognized the strategic importance of the Great Nicobar Islands and plans to develop the island into a major military and commercial hub. The development of Great Nicobar Island is a major strategic initiative for India and is expected to significantly impact island's economy, environment, and culture. Kindly put on slide number 8 the 10-degree channel. The 10-degree channel is a major shipping route in the Indian Ocean. It is located between the Andaman and Nicobar Islands of India. The channel is about 80 nautical miles wide and is used by over 60,000 commercial ships annually. The 10-degree channel is strategically important because it is a significant choke point in the Indian Ocean. It is the only deep water channel connecting the Bay of Bengal to the Andaman Sea, making it a critical route for shipping between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. The 10-degree channel is also a potential alternative route for ships if the Malacca Strait is closed due to conflict or some natural disaster. The strategic importance of the 10-degree channel has led India to increase its military presence in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Kindly put on slide number 9, Andamans. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken a significant step in fortifying India's naval frontiers by honoring 21 Paramveer Chakra Award winners and immortalizing their bravery. As a testament to their courage, the islands of Andaman and Nicobar have been named after these courageous individuals, transforming them into sentinels of India's maritime defense. Recognizing the strategic importance of Andaman and Nicobar Islands in the Indo-Pacific region, the government is now poised to elevate them as a crucial military asset. However, to make Andamans a critical asset, the government needs to revisit and expedite the 15-year old plan of establishing a container terminal at Campbell Bay. The terminal will play a vital role in facilitating the replenishment of cargo ships navigating the Straits of Malacca, which at present is being done at Colombo. Moreover, the runways at INS Kohasa in North Andaman and INS Baz in Great Nicobar must be extended to accommodate Indian Navy's anti-submarine and reconnaissance P-8I aircraft, enabling them to operate effectively in the region. Additionally, constructing a jetty capable of handling India's 2 aircraft carriers at Campbell Bay becomes essential if India intends to counter the challenges posed by China in the Indo-Pacific. While the forward deployment of Su-30 Mark I fighters at INS Utkrosh in Port Blair is already underway, the power game in South China will witness a significant transformation with fighter operations from INS Baz in Great Nicobar. This expansion of India's military footprint into Southeast Asia and beyond will profoundly impact regional dynamics. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands also provide an advantageous position for Indian submarines to respond swiftly to any crisis. With their suitability for operating in relatively shallow waters, Indian diesel-electric submarines can serve as a buffer and act as forward eyes for India's nuclear submarines patrolling the deeper waters. The actions initiated by the government to designate Andaman and Nicobar Islands as sentinels and enhance their strategic military capabilities will bolster India's presence and influence the Indo-Pacific region. Now coming to the Coco Islands of Myanmar. Speculations surrounding the Great Coco Islands have persisted for quite some time, encompassing a range of theories and claims. These include the existence of antennas and signal intelligence posts, allegations of leasing the islands to China around 1994, reports of Chinese monitoring Indian missile and space rocket launchings, and the potential presence of Chinese military personnel on the Great Coco Island, along with the establishment of radar posts on Manaong Island, Hangigi Island, and Zardargi Island. In 2005, Admiral Arun Prakash had stated that there were no Chinese military installations on the Great Coco Islands. In 2014, the Commander-in-Chief of India's Andaman and Nicobar Command mentioned that China had been developing a runway on the island for civilian purposes, with no confirmed reports of Chinese presence. At that time, the situation was not considered alarming. Kindly put on slide number 11, infrastructure development of Coco Islands. However, ongoing infrastructure development definitely indicate that the Myanmar Air Force is trying to establish an airfield and an air base on the islands. Recent satellite imagery from Maxar Technologies in 2023 reveals the construction of 2 new hangars, an accommodation block, a causeway, and a runway extended to 2,300 meters. Furthermore, evidence suggests that land is being cleared for additional construction. While it appears that Myanmar Air Force is active on the Great Coco Island, it is reasonable to speculate that with Myanmar facing isolation and economic challenges, Chinese capital will likely support the development of island. China has already made significant investments in the China-Myanmar economic corridor to gain access to the Indian Ocean via the Bay of Bengal. The Kiao Kupfu Special Economic Zone Deep Seaport Company Limited, a joint venture between the Chinese consortium CITIC Myanmar Port Investment Limited and the KPSEZ Management Company, is developing the Kiao Kupfu Port and Special Economic Zone. Therefore, once the air base becomes fully operational at Coco Islands, it is highly feasible that China would gain surveillance and tracking capabilities regarding Indian activities in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. From the perspective of the Myanmar military, it is evident that the strategic significance of Coco Islands is vital for their maritime security. Regular flights of the Myanmar Air Force and monthly visits by Myanmar naval vessels along the Yangon, Coco Island Yangon route have been observed since 2014. With the completion of a more extensive naval jetty in 2017, Myanmar's frigates have been docking there. The extended runway not only accommodates civilian aircraft but also allows for the use of fighter jets by the Myanmar military. These developments indicate that the Myanmar military attributes strategic importance to the Coco Islands. India has provided a submarine to Myanmar, and the Sitwe port has been developed under a framework of agreement between India and Myanmar. This agreement aims to construct and operate a multimodal transport facility on the Kaladan River, connecting Sitwe port in Myanmar with the state of Mizoram in India. In the light of these developments, India would have acknowledged the strategic significance of Coco Islands and must have initiated measures accordingly. Slide number 12, India's presence in Indian Ocean. In today's talk, I have tried to bring out some salient aspects of the Indian maritime domain security and the wide swath that it covers. We have taken our journey from south to the north and have attempted to highlight some of the security concerns as well as what India has been doing to counter it. Believe me, I have discussed less than 5% of what has been happening on the shores. In a way, I have restricted myself to the Cocos and the Cocos Islands only. Next slide, please. I have finished. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you very much indeed, Admiral Kulshrestha, for a very enlightening lecture on the maritime significance of Coco Islands and possibly an undeclared, in construction Chinese base over there. It is, creating a lot of concern. So we will go on to our next phase, which is question and answers. Let's go on to question and answer session. So the first question is from Narayan Kumar. Admiral, will the Chinese naval facility or listening post being set up in Great Coco Islands nullify Indian advantage in Malacca Straits? And could China use the Myanmar economic corridor to bypass Malacca Straits? Thank you.
Very profound question. There are two aspects to this question. The whole aim of my talk, starting from Coco's Island of Australia and coming to Coco Islands of Myanmar, was just to highlight how we have protected our interests not only in the Bay of Bengal, but also in the south of Andamans, that is the Malacca Strait, and the other straits which have to be used in case Malacca Strait is closed. So, I don't think setting a post which is just 50 odd or 60 kilometers from Andamans, where we have eyes all the time on the Coco Island, will nullify our advantage over the Malacca Strait. The only advantage over Malacca Strait which we have got is actually through the 10-degree channel, not the only, the best advantage, and also through the Coco Islands, which will be covering all the shipping routes in the area. And the second part is, could China use Myanmar economic corridor to bypass Malacca Strait? Now, this is a question which has been asked very frequently and discussed. There are two ports and two economic corridors. One is CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and one is the China-Myanmar Economic Corridors. Studies have been done by actual measurement of the diameter of the pipes which have been laid for carrying the fuel. And it has been estimated that not more than 10% of the Chinese requirement would ever be passed through these land pipelines to China. This is not taking into account the likelihood of extensive increase in the use of fuels by China. So, in my personal opinion, both these corridors are mainly to be used by China for taking their goods from inside the territory into the ocean. So the rail line link in the CPEC corridor, as well as in Iran, which is they are going to make, plus this from Yunnan province into Myanmar, they are opening up into the Bay of Bengal, which leads to Europe and other Asian countries.
If I may, as the moderator, I would like to join with Narayan Kumar on his original question, whether a fully developed base, Chinese base on Coco Island will nullify Indian advantage in Malacca Straits. One has to see this question in view of the Chinese maritime expansion in South China Sea, militarization of artificial islands in South China Sea, a Chinese naval base being developed in Ream in Cambodia, a Chinese naval base also in Sittwe, China's funding of Coco Island Naval Base. Apparently, the Myanmar government is stating that they are also developing a tri-service command on Coco Islands once India decided. Now, there's no comparison between security needs of India versus Myanmar. So you know what is happening, that a clandestine tri-service command base is being put on Coco Islands by China. I personally don't have any doubts about it because Myanmar has a lot of economic problems. The last thing they want to develop is, a tri-service command base in Coco Islands. But it's important to note that China says that the whole of South China Sea belongs to China, but Indian Ocean is not India's ocean, which is very good sophistry. But China is also putting some pressure on Myanmar, on Thailand, for developing what is called Kra Canal, and I'm going to put this graphic there. Let me put, yes. So you see this southern Thailand, and here is Coco Island. Kra Canal will actually be like Panama Canal. It will bifurcate the southern peninsula of Thailand, connecting Bay of Bengal with South China Sea. Now, this Kra Canal has been in planning phase for more than 200 years. It was a Thai monarchy's dream, but because of the mountainous region and the costs involved, it never materialized. But with BRI and China having trillions of dollars of foreign exchange, it is not unlikely that they may put pressure on Thai government. So if Kra Canal develops, China has whole of the South China Sea to itself under its hegemony. China has access to Indian Ocean through Kra Canal and a tri-service military base on Coco Island. That's a nightmare scenario for India's security needs. And we should plan actually for that outcome, because any Chinese denial is a non-denial. If China is denying anything, we can take it for granted that they are doing it. I would think that it is a serious threat to Indian maritime concerns, maritime security. They have been monitoring our missile development and the missile tests from the SIGINT post in Coco Islands. So the next issue is having a tri-service command base there. There's a question from Mr. Bhagwat. Should India think about allowing Americans to use one of our ports in Andaman and Nicobar Islands as a Quad member? Admiral Kulshrestha?
My personal view is, what difference does it make whether they fly the maritime reconnaissance aircraft or we fly it? Because we will share the intelligence with them. We have a logistics agreement with USA for fueling and using the base facility for logistics only. So I do not think that we should give our island to USA on lease or something and create a problem for us. We are an independent country. We are fully able to run the flights as we like. And since we are close friends, we can do the maritime reconnaissance and other things. Why we should give them the place to make a base in our area?
Very well answered question. We go to the next question, and that is somebody by name MASDL25, so it's not the exact name. I don't know who this person is. Is there Any confirmed news of Myanmar fighter jets ever operating from Coco Islands? Runway length is around 2,300 meters, which is a severely restricting factor, at least for fighter planes to take off with full weapon load.
I agree with him entirely. These are mostly speculations, and small military aircraft have been operating from there. But other than that, I do not have any other information. Since I am retired, I do not have access to OSINT of the Indian Navy.
The next question is from Anurag Gangal. Whether these Coco Islands change in area substantially with change in sea levels?
Again, we have seen a lot of changes in the islands, not only Coco Islands, at Andaman and Nicobar also. The smaller islands, especially after the earthquake, our islands were severely damaged, and they had changed the shapes. So I'm sure that same thing must have happened with Coco Islands. As far as Wheeler Island, I also know that uh, during monsoon there is a deposition of sand on some side and removal of sand from the other side. These factors keep on going. It's an ongoing natural phenomena, but I do not have access to any satellite imagery which has measured this kind of thing.
The next question is from Mr. Kumar from New Jersey, and I'll read the question. Why are we not able to form alliances with our immediate neighbors and build infrastructure of strategic importance for India's national security ahead of China? Specifically, is it a question of money or question of technology? Why are we allowing China to encircle India?
This is a very complex question, and it's a basically question of political will. We can forge alliances. In fact, I have shown one slide towards the end, India's alliances in the Indian Ocean region. With the amount of resources available with us, I think that is the best that we can do. And the next part is which country will allow us to make strategic infrastructure on their land? That is a serious question. And one has to pay serious money and has to control the political policy making level leadership of that country, which I don't think India does. And lastly, India is a democracy. So a lot of things we have to do as a democratic country, which unfortunately China doesn't have to adhere.
So I will join here with Mr. Kumar. Yes, there is asymmetry between India and China in terms of economy, in terms of comprehensive national strength, in terms of technological advancement. But India has been taking steps to counter what has been called the encirclement by China. And India is working with friendly governments to develop infrastructure, which may have maritime significance in Seychelles, in Madagascar, and also now in Bangladesh with collaboration with Japanese government next to Chittagong port. Indian government is developing a port which will take away the significance of Chittagong port. So India has started to develop maritime infrastructure in the region, in the greater Indian Ocean region, from Strait of Hormuz to the Malacca Straits at several locations. Obviously, our economy is still much smaller than Chinese economy, so there is a resource crunch, but attempts are being made to develop infrastructure in alliance with friendly countries. So it's not that Indian government is sleeping. There are active, movements going on, but still the development in Coco Island being so near It's only 30 miles away from Andaman and Nicobar Islands, the Tri-Service Command. That becomes a serious issue. I'll go to the next question. It is coming from Mr. P.V. Ramachandran from Chennai in Tamil Nadu. Why is the government of India not retreating that Chagos archipelago in Lakshadweep, the ancient Indian islands of Sukhdara in what was the Bombay Presidency, and those islands in Andaman Nicobar like Coco Islands are part of India, besides Kerguelen Islands and the 90 East Ridge? Admiral Kulshrestha.
I don't have an answer to this question. I'm sorry, because how the government of India works.
Okay. I will join here for a minute since Admiral Kulshrestha does not want to answer that question. A lot of these issues are the legacy of partition, of undivided British India into India and Pakistan. And if you see the historical documents accessed around the time of transfer of power, there was a lot of jockeying and a lot of negotiations, a lot of bargaining, and a lot of actually Machiavellian display by the imperial British government, because they still wanted to have a foothold in the region. And their actually preferred state was Pakistan, not India. So there is some documentation, there is some official documentation that initially there was some doubt whether Lakshadweep archipelago would be transferred to Pakistan. And at that time, the person who handled the negotiations with the imperial government was Sardar Patel, who put his foot down and did not allow the imperial British government to transfer the Lakshadweep archipelago to Pakistan, because the population was Muslim majority in that particular archipelago. Having said that, when it comes to Andaman and Nicobar Islands, historically, Coco Islands were part of Andaman Nicobar Island archipelago. And there was some issue about British government not wanting to actually give up Andaman Nicobar Island whole archipelago to India and keep that as a naval base for itself. And that was actually reiterated in form of a query by government of Australia, who wanted to preserve Australian interests in Bay of Bengal / Indian Ocean region, and wanted to know if Britain or Great Britain or whatever entity was there, whether they'll keep the Andaman Nicobar Islands. And there was some documentation which were, the article was written by K.R.N. Swamy in the Tribune, having accessed those correspondences, suggested that British actually then decided not to deal with Sardar Patel, and they directly dealt with Nehru, Lord Mountbatten, and talked about leasing a part of Andaman and Nicobar Island to the British Empire even after transfer of power. And Nehru naively gave the assurance, yes, this will be considered if some sort of official communication is done. Finally, British imperial government did transfer Andaman Nicobar Islands to India. Now, it's also important to say that Muhammad Ali Jinnah actually laid a claim of Andaman and Nicobar Islands and stated that they should not be transferred to India, they should be given to Pakistan, because India has no maritime interest. Pakistan has Eastern Pakistan wing. So we have the natural claimants, but because of possibility of reaction from entire Indian population, people as well as the state, British transferred Andaman Nicobar Islands to India, but chose to keep the Coco Islands, which were integral part of the Andaman Nicobar Island archipelago, to Myanmar. Mind you, Myanmar did not get, or the Burma as it used to be called, did not get independence till 1948. Around 1942 to 1945, the entire Andaman Nicobar archipelago including Coco Islands, were under control of Japanese government in collaboration with the Azad Hind Force of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. For a period of 3 years, Coco Islands and Andaman Nicobar Islands were under Indian National Army in joint collaboration with Japanese government. After end of Second World War, the Japanese government transferred back the occupation to Imperial British government. So technically, it was part of British India till the transfer of power. At that time, the archipelago was subdivided into Andaman and Nicobar Islands that were held transferred to India, but Coco Island remained with the Imperial British government till 1948 as part of the Crown Colony, independent Crown Colony of Burma. And in 48, the possession was given to Burma. So there's a little bit of history there in relation to Mr. Ravichandran's question. I'll go on to the next question. It is by Mr. R.K. Srivastav. Sir, is there any feasibility of operating INICG, Indian Coast Guard, aircraft from Coco Island airstrip for joint maritime surveillance with Myanmar, mainly for non-traditional issues like wildlife and drug trafficking? Admiral Kulshrestha.
I don't think it is feasible at the current stage. With the conditions in Myanmar are actually deteriorating day by day. So I don't think diplomatically it will be feasible for the government to ask for this. Further, since we have a full-fledged air base in Port Blair, I don't think there is a necessity for us to operate from their island. We can do everything we require from Port Blair itself. Plus, we are also building another air base in north of Port Blair and one in the south. As it is, as I have told you, the Coco Island is transparent to us, off the record or on the record. We can see everything that is happening there.
So next question is again from this person who has not given his name. He talks about two scenarios. One, if China is helping Myanmar in Coco Islands, then what should India do? And second, if Myanmar is doing this without Chinese help as per Myanmar's claim, then what is Myanmar's interest in doing so? And why doesn't India collaborate with Myanmar in developing its own setup in Coco Islands? So it's continuation of the same question that you have tried to answer. If you want to say anything further on that.
Okay. If China is helping Myanmar in Coco, then what should India do? My whole talk was that the strategic importance of how to counter the strategic importance of Coco Islands with China. Right from Coco's Island of Australia, right up to the Port Blair and INS Uttarghosh, INS Baz, is the things which we have done to counter not only Coco's Island, but Chinese presence also in Myanmar and Bangladesh. Now the question, is China helping Myanmar? 100%. Financially, they are building the airstrip. The Myanmar doesn't have the type of financial resources which are required to build in an island. So Myanmar's interest is that you will agree with me that each island comes with its own, EEZ, which is an area for exploring its, minerals and seabed resources. Plus, keeping a strategic interest in the shipping, which is going to Malacca Strait and other places. So Myanmar's interest is in developing Coco Island is this only. Why doesn't India collaborate with Myanmar in developing its own setup in Coco? Personally, I think it is redundant because we have got enough islands just 30 miles off Coco. We have got islands, part of Andaman Nicobar chain, which we can develop if required. And we are already doing the needful. So we don't have to have a setup in Coco Island, which is a very small island of 14 kilometers or something, 14 square kilometers.
I think that answers the question. In 2005, Myanmar government allowed India's defense attaché in Myanmar to visit Coco Islands to dispel the rumors that China was developing a, listening post there. These rumors have been there since 1994. It is said that the visit of Indian diplomatic attaché at that point in time followed actually the tsunami, which washed away all the infrastructure. So there was nothing over there. I think all these questions that are being asked, it may be prudent for India to ask for a visit again, uh, citing our security concerns because we have a tri-service base in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and Maxar technology is actually satellite photos are clearly showing a lot of development that even Federation of American Scientists has talked about. They are very convinced, Federation of American Scientists, that China is developing a military base, whether it's a tri-service command base or just a naval base, or there is definitely an airstrip there. So there is no smoke without fire. Let's be very clear about, despite non-denial denials by Myanmar and blunt denials by Chinese government that some activity is happening. So definitely there's need for periodic inspections of Coco Islands, keeping in our maritime security concerns. That is definitely something we need to keep in mind, short of having our own base or permanent military presence or permanent naval presence. I'll go on to next question. It is coming from Mr. Kumar from New Jersey. In the event of China declaring war on India, does India have the capability to do a naval blockade of the Malacca Straits to choke Chinese supply chains, trade routes? Admiral Kulshrestha?
Uh, uh, Declaring war on India will be a land war, or is it going to be a war at sea? Now, these are two things which have to be differentiated. Now, in case of a land war, I don't think we are going to block Malacca Straits. In case of a sea war, it will be on our shores and we'll have to fight it in Bay of Bengal or Arabian Sea. It is very easy for people to say block Malacca Straits, but blocking Malacca Straits is a thing which very few countries will agree to, because it is going to choke the complete shipping from this side to the east side, including Japan. All the countries on the other side are going to be affected. How are we going to do that? India alone cannot block Malacca Straits. It has to be a consortium or a collaborative effort by the nations. Now, other problem is, uh, how do you identify a ship to say whether it is going to China or it is going to Cambodia or going to Japan? That is going to be a problem because merchant marine are, the fuel itself gets sold multiple times before it reaches its actual destination. So today it might have carried fuel in Oman from the Gulf for China. On the way, it might have sold it to many other countries. And if you block that fuel, then we are not at war with that country. So people say that China will mainly use Chinese ships for ferrying their fuel in case of hostilities, which is a thing which I don't agree at all. China will never use their own ships, which can be identified as Chinese ships and can be stopped or boarded. So it is at present it's a hypothetical question whether we can block Malacca Strait, but definitely in Indo-China war we are not going to block. We will not be able to block Malacca Strait due to international pressure, and it has to be a really very well thought out strategy even for Quad to block Malacca Strait because it is going to hit everybody very hard, not only China.
I think it's the question is basically hypothetical scenario building and doing this armchair practice. I don't think uh, we will achieve anything by hypothetical scenario building. but I'm pretty sure the government of India and the defense establishment has done their own scenario buildings and various options. Any kind of Indo-China war definitely is likely to be a land war, but it may have other components. I think learning from 1962 experience, Indian defense establishment should have everything on the table and should not exclude anything off the table in advance to encourage Chinese hegemonic intentions. The mistake done in 1962 was to keep the Indian Air Force off the war. And I think in that sense, we should not make any pre-war declarative intentions that we will not do this, we will not do that. When you are at war, everything is on the table. I cannot speak for a future government of India in a hypothetical scenario of just a bilateral war between India and China. More likely, it is going to be part of a wider conflict in Indo-Pacific theater in which our allies or dialogue partners, quadrilateral security dialogue partners would be working in alliance with us. At that point in time, what is the implication internationally is totally hypothetical, so I will not comment on that. But I am pretty sure Government of India or the defense establishment has taken some of these considerations into advisement. The next question is coming from Mr. Ravichandran again. First, the government, and I think he refers to Government of India, should reiterate that these islands are part of India and issue an ultimatum that if these islands are presently controlled by foreign countries, are allowed to be used as a geostrategic threat to India, India would not hesitate to summarily take back these integral parts of India. Admiral Kulshrestha, what would you like to comment on this?
Dr. Adityanjee, these are diplomatic questions. You cannot give an island and just take it back just like that. So one has to see the treaty and under what conditions these things have been given. It is not that we have just allowed them to sit there and we have transferred the sovereignty. Actually, it is their land. So sovereignty with all rights has been transferred, including the airspace above the island, including the water below and the seabed, and the continental shelf if at all it is there. So it is not possible for the government to reiterate that these islands are ours and claim, like China keeps claiming historically that Arunachal Pradesh is ours, this place is ours. It is not possible here because this was in too recent past.
I will thank actually Mr. Ravichandran for the sentiments. And I think those sentiments should be channelized to Government of India through appropriate channels or through forums. But the sentiment is definitely appreciated in view of the changing, very complex geopolitical and maritime scenario in the Indo-Pacific. I think there may be an argument for that, but I think the suggestions need to be channelized to Ministry of Defense or Government of India. But I do appreciate the sentiments behind the question. So I think I have some sympathy to the sentiment expressed in that question, but geopolitical reality at this point in time is different. I'll go on to next question by Mr. Narayan Kumar. And that question is, in case China has a listening post or facility, why was China sending its spy ships to Bay of Bengal to monitor missile tests? Admiral Kulshrestha.
A spy ship does much more than a listening post. The spy ship can, take hydrographic surveys, can do underwater, listening, can monitor. It has got much more equipment. And it is, for the time it is in the international waters, it is part of the country. Nobody can touch that ship. And it is free to move from one place to the other. In fact, at times it is, we have feared we had a fear that it could disrupt the launch or it could disrupt the flight of the spacecraft or the missile. In fact, I personally know of an instance where during a missile test, it had to be postponed by as much as 2 hours because some ship was not answering our calls or the NOTAMs or the aircrafts were not answering. So all sorts of things happen at high seas. So which a land listening post will not be able to cover. For measurement of trajectory, you need very, very highly sophisticated radars, which this listening post will not be able to monitor the trajectory. Plus, they will like to collect the data which is transmitted by the base to the missile or the ship and the data which is transferred back from the rocket. That is the telemetry data, which will not be able to be assessed by the listening post. So a spy ship is a much more sophisticated way of carrying out surveillance.
Well, that was the last question. So I am highly thankful to Admiral Kulshrestha for a very informative, very lucid lecture on the maritime security concerns because of these developments on Coco Islands. And believe it or not, with satellite technology, pictures are coming, and there's a lot of chat in the security establishments worldwide, not just in India. As I mentioned, Federation of American Scientists did mention about this, development, and there's no doubt that it is a clandestine Chinese military base, not just a naval base, it's an integrated military base. In fact, there was an article in Vivekananda International Foundation website in 2020 by a person of Myanmarese origin who openly acknowledged that Myanmar government is building a tri-service command post on Coco Island. The military chief is making actually monthly visits to Coco Island to personally supervise this development. And yes, the technology does not lie because you have all these runways, the hangars, and everything. So it's a reality. It's no longer a figment of imagination. And I think the security establishment, India, needs to take note of these developments because you can never rely on Chinese denials or Myanmar's non-denial denial. So some corrective action has to be taken. The government has to be vigilant. I'm thankful to Admiral Kulshrestha. I'm also thankful to our audience who took time off on a Saturday morning in US and Saturday evening in India because a lot of people have joined from India. And finally, I'm thankful to Team CSA, Mr. Ripudaman Pachori, Mr. Rajiv Verma, and Mr. Ankush Bhandari, who helped me organize this kind of activity on behalf of Council for Strategic Affairs. So thank you everyone, including Team CSA. We are highly grateful to Admiral Kulshrestha. We hope that he keeps on coming to our platform and keeps on giving us good advice as a member of the advisory board of the Council for Strategic Affairs. Thank you everyone. Namaskar, and we shall meet in June for our next program.
Thank you, Dr. Adityanjee. I just want to reassure the audience the Indian government has taken serious cognizance of this. And not only now, much before the Maxar satellite images were available, we have got our own sources. But I cannot share all those data or the details as I am not privy to it. But I do know of the talk which is going on. So on this front, we'll be well prepared.
Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks a lot, Admiral Kulshrestha.
Thank you, and Jai Hind.